Cup noodles, fueling panda's hunger since 1885 for rapid succession, bringing you back to the program now. Hey guys, I'm back, continuing from where we left off. Look, the page hasn't even moved, because I'm still doing this on the same day. I'm really hoping that this one, the file isn't corrupt like the last one, but we never know until I finish this. I'm not going to know either, so if it does, I may just hit my head on a wall and go and get some rope and hang myself. But, you know, I'm hoping that doesn't happen, so let's get back into the swing of things. I think I've got a little bit more energy now. I've kind of woken up from before. I'm hoping so. We had 3 taps on the door and we were wondering who it was. Misha quickly skips over to check who it is, tapping Shizune's shoulder on the way past to let her companion know what's happening. Ah, you're here. Who is it? With a slight pause to enter Shizune's data into the file along with all the others. I look up to check who's at the door. Oh, Lilly. Lilly? After giving a cursory nod to Misha in greeting, she perks her head up in her trademark manner. Is that Hisao? She's pretty darn good at working out my voice from the smallest of phrases nowadays. Yeah, it's me. Hey. The atmosphere feels slightly awkward as she bows. Neither of us know quite how intimate we should be around each other, given she's leaving in just a matter of hours. This is a fact that, thankfully, neither the oblivious Misha nor the hard-working Shizune pick up on. So, you've got to do work as well? Unfortunately, I arrived as soon as I could, but my class held me up with a surprise farewell party, and I had to get changed. I glanced down at the laptop's clock. It's pretty much the end of lunchtime, so I'm guessing Lilly managed to wrangle the last period off as well. I take it Shizune is here as well? ... Of course! ... Oh my god, it's incredibly hot in here. I'm sorry, I have to open my window. It's so hot, I am sweating up a damn storm. Jesus. Open window. Oh, okay. We're good. However, now there's a very loud noise. But I think we're going to have to manage. It's the wind howling in my window. And I've been here during all of lunchtime as well. That last comment wasn't really needed. Shizune's baiting Lilly into another argument. I can feel it. I'm sorry I can't be as hardworking as you, Shizune. I'll endeavour to hire more lackeys to do my work in the future, I assure you. And Lilly just took the bait, escalating things further. Well, that escalated quickly. ... But aren't you the one always outsourcing work to your classmates? The difference is that they choose to help, unlike your tyrannical grip on your own class. ... Tyranny works. Even if we did things differently, we still got the same results, right? This is school, not a police state. You'll have to remind me when you're appointed class monarch, I'm afraid. Ooh, stab in the back. Lily's going at it. ... She's pissed. You have to seize power. It's not as good as if it's just handed to you, but I guess you wouldn't really understand that, right? Jeez, these guys are really going at it. You'll also have to remind me when the monarchs were elected into their positions. Lilly positively bristles at this. Shizune's 2-hit combo forces her onto defense. Combo breaker! Yet for all your vaunted power, you cannot get one person to help you without forcing them. But Hisao volunteered. He's such a hard worker. He's doing this instead of meaningless socialization, right? Is that so, Hisao? This is bad. I've really ended up between a rock and a hard place. much as it pains me to do this, the truth has at least a chance of stopping this argument here and now. It's okay, Lily. They didn't harass me to come or anything. Lily gives me a disapproving grimace, silently radiating her strong feelings of displeasure in my general direction. She can be quite scary when she wants to be, though thankfully that isn't often. Chan, you make it sound like it's a regular occurrence. It isn't. In the end, it doesn't matter so long as everything's getting done at good pace. Let's just get this work over and done with so we can go home. Shizune snorts derisively and gets back to marking off the sheet in front of her, while Lily sighs and finds her way along the room with her hand following the filing cabinets lined along the wall. This would mark the only time I've managed to successfully defuse one of these situations, but the grudging ceasefire built around mutual fear and respect makes this feel more like the Cold War than any real peace. I can't take all the credit though. Lily's leaving has surely affected Shizune to some extent, to make her give up so easily. Moments before getting back to my work, I noticed Lily reaching up to grab something from above a filing cabinet. I almost offered to help, but her height gives her ample ability to take it down safely. Once she sets a strangely shaped device on the desk beside me, I realise just what it is, sort of, as it takes the old green covering off and sits down. Oh, it's a typewriter. At first it seems to be an old metallic blue typewriter, but it doesn't take me long to realise it's far from ordinary. It only has 7 keys, and these 2 ones here and the I don't even know if that's how a typewriter sounds. I've only ever used a typewriter once in my entire life. They are cool. I really wish I had a typewriter. It has far fewer keys than expected, and those it has show no lettering printed on them. Only the shadows cast by the tiny braille dots on them give a hint of the thing's purpose. Blind typewriter? Oh, this? Well, you're not far off. It's normally called a Perkins Brailler, but it's basically a typewriter for the blind, yes. It presses braille into the page rather than text, which is why it has fewer keys. It's actually pretty cool. Huh, that's really neat. She gives a light-hearted grin at my curiosity over it. I have to admit that it appeals to my sense of novelty. Without further ado, we each get back to our allotted tasks. The loud clunking of the mechanics in Lily's brailler, and the tapping of the laptop's old and wearing keyboard quickly fill the room. It's a nice atmosphere, really. Everyone knows what they have to do, and Lily and I get to sit beside each other and exchange the odd word as we work away. Nostalgic. That's what it feels like. It's pleasant, but just slightly stained with the knowledge that our time together is nearing its end. Oh, don't remind me. Excuse me, Misha. To properly address her, Misha bounces over from the filing cabinet she's peering into, in spite of Lily's lack of sight. For a moment I think it's strange, but then realise it's exactly what I do. What's up? Could you ask Shizune where the attendance records for Class 3-2 are? I think they've been moved. Okie dokie. And with that, she flitters off to Shizune, who's working at the table behind us. Lily's familiarity with the council room and the efficiency with which she works remind me that she, Misha and Shizune used to all work together in the student council. Maybe this is a fitting end for her stay in Yamaku, working away just like she used to, surrounded by those she loves and at least liked. I look up, getting taken off guard by Shizune sorting through a drawer rather than Misha. Sure enough, she plucks out a manila folder entirely blank save for the just barely visible bumps on its front, and holds it in front of Lily. Lily's hand flits over it to check what it is, her fingers feeling out the dots of braille and confirming it's what she asked for. Thank you, Misha. No reply. No reply, that is, save for an odd grin. No smile on Shizune's face. Aww. Oh, that's a really nice picture. A couple of seconds pass before Lily clicks that it isn't Misha behind her, but Shizune. Her momentary look of surprise is replaced by a slightly bashful smile. For a few moments the room is all but still and silent. Eventually though, Shizune strides back to her workstation and Lilly begins typing once again. It only lasted a handful of seconds in all, but it feels like years of communication were made up for in that one silent exchange. Whoops, sorry. There, finished. I lean my head back and rub my eyes to try and work away their weariness. Oh no, I'm getting yawn. Damn it! It always happens! Staring at that small and rather poor screen is taking its toll. Excellent time. The only thing left is to pile up these away and I'll have my workload finished as well. Good. I can back up the brother and put it away while you do that. Thank you, Hisao. Misha, are you and Shizune far from being done? I look around for the two as I replace the cover over the braille, only to see them waiting at the door. I guess they must be waiting for us. With a minimum of waste of time, we file and pack up everything that remains and join them. Thank you for waiting, you two. I couldn't just take off without you, Jan. You've been great help. Shizune nods approvingly, pleased with my efforts. I guess that's the last class representative work done and over with then. That's right. I'll miss you, Lilly. I think it was fun working with you. Thank you, Misha. It's been good working with you. And Shizune? Shizune thinks for a moment before formulating her response. It's not that she often communicates without thinking. Quite the opposite, but this time it's even more considered than usual. Misha looks a little surprised before passing on the message. Shizune says, "You better do your work over there better than you did it here." Far from taking offense, Lilly giggles into her hand. That's okay. Please tell Shizune to give those still here a little more understanding in the future. Competitive until the last. Maybe Shizune and Lilly aren't so different after all. Chan says that she'll be checking to make sure you live up to your end of the promise. And that's how it will be. I'd better be off there. Goodbye, Shizune. Goodbye, Misha. Lilly takes a hold of my arm and proves there being no need for a cane if I'm here to guide her. With a nod of farewell to the two, we set off out the door and make our way to the still grounds. As I turn to wave goodbye to them, I notice Shizune's gaze lingering on Lilly. They may annoy each other, but family bonds aren't easily broken. Got all your papers sorted then? Yes, they've all been filled out and handed in. On top of things as well, aren't you? As always, aren't you? She gives an earnest smile at the compliment, but it feels as if her happiness is just a veneer over the fact that she's fully aware of how much she's leaving behind. It reminds me of how she was like when I first met her, always smiling, always that little bit aloof, always that little distance away from everybody. Even now, she still maintains that air around many others, especially those she's not close to. I had hoped that our time together would have changed that fact. Our pace slows, the two of us coming to a halt in the all but empty school gardens. Hisao, is something the... Lilly's words are cut short as I turn and wrap my arms around her, pulling her tight. I may not usually be given to such impulsive actions, but I just want to be close to her, even if it's the last time I'll be able to. All the other students have retreated to their dormitories and homes, only the ruffling of leaves in the breeze making any sound whatsoever. As I draw back, I can see she has dropped her carefully maintained smile. Her hand hesitates, wanting neither to leave nor stay on my features. She's putting up a brave show, but her slight trembling gives her away. Lilly may be able to control herself, but even when she can't hold her composure together. This is the woman I've come to love, but also the one who all in too short a time will leave the country forever. I'm sorry, Hisao. It's okay, you've got your own life to lead after all. It's not okay. We walk up the hallway in the girls' dormitory hand in hand, our emotions by now largely quelled. Nevertheless, our hands grip each other more tightly than before. Faint muffled voices can be heard from Lily's room, the origins of which aren't too difficult to guess. The moment she opens the door, Hanako bursts through and wraps her arms around Lily, taking her very obviously by surprise. Lily! Lily! Hanako? I'm going to miss you, Lily. As expected, she's on the verge of tears, and so am I. Lily gently rubs Hanako's hair with her hand in response, then pulls back and gives a warm, reassuring smile. Looking beyond Hanako, Akira can be seen getting up from the side of Lily's bed and scratching her head. Her eyes turn from Lily and Hanako to me, stilted, weak smile hanging on her face. Try to return a more genuinely happy look, but the result is probably just the same. So everything's set? Managed to hold back from killing Shizune? The comment draws an amused giggle from her sister. Yes, I have everything in order, and yes, I managed not to. Have you packed everything you need? Got the 2 bags right here, but there's still some stuff left at Hakamichi's home. I can pick that up while we wait for their tomorrow evening's flight though. Akira gives the 2 large black travelling bags on the floor a hearty pat. She probably came to help pack and make sure everything was in order on Lily's end before going together with her. Lily, will you be okay over there? I'll be alright, I assure you. I have Akira looking after me as well, and you know that she's reliable. But don't worry, Hanako. I have your phone number after all, so we can stay in touch with Akira's help. I could send you things over the internet as well. Hey, don't use me just because you won't learn how to use a computer. Hanako and Lily both giggle briefly, the mood lightening ever so little. It goes for you too, Hisao. I promise I'll contact you once I'm in Scotland. I know, I'll be looking forward to it. Her offer may be kind, but we both know that this is tantamount to breaking up. Neither of us has any illusions as to how well we'd manage a long-distance relationship. Sorry. With nary a word of prompting, the 4 of us begin the long, solemn walk to the school gate. I can assure you the last time I did that part just then when we were in Lily's room, I was getting quite choked up. And even now I'm still getting kind of choked up. That's why I'm having to clear my throat and take drinks all the time. Numerous lamps scattered around the Yamaku grounds fail to do much more than provide pinpoints of light in an otherwise dense darkness. A car parked on the road just outside the school grounds comes into view, its shining black exterior reflecting the dimly lit lamps of Yamaku. I call out to Akira in an effort to alleviate a bit of the heavy atmosphere. That your car? What kind is it? Don't know much about cars, do you? It's a Lancer Evo, solid and speedy. Oh, that is a good car. It's a nice car. Good to know you have, even though you don't know much about cars, you did choose a good type, you know? Good. You chose a Mitzi. It's good. Well, it's not as if her comment on my knowledge is off the mark. I've never really taken an interest in them. She gives a small sigh. She's been good. Pity I have to part with it tomorrow, just like the summer house. You guys were the last to visit it before it changed hands. Turning back from my rather faulty attempt at small talk, I glance at Hanako and Lily following behind us. By rights, Hanako should be leading Lily, but it's rather definitely the other way around as she clings tightly to Lily's arm. It's a depressing sight. So, I guess this is it. Indeed. Although the time for everyone to say their farewells is now, nobody really wants to take the first step. It's as if the longer nobody speaks, the better the chances of them simply not leaving. I have to close my window. Here we go. Lily, do you really have to go? I'm sorry, Hanako. I won't be leaving you forever though. I can still call you. Hisao will still be here as well. I nod, but Hanako just clutches all the tighter to Lily's arm. After spending so long without anyone to call family, it must be excruciating to have to say goodbye to the person that was so close to a mother as anyone could have been in her life. Lily lets out a long, sad breath. All Akira and I can really do is stand by quietly on the sidelines, since the only person that can solve this would be Lily herself. Eventually Lily pulls her arm from Hanako's grip and holds both of her shoulders gently, a much more decisive way of address than I've ever seen Lily take with her. Hanako, remember when we first met? When you entered my room for the first time after our overhearing my consoling of a friend, you didn't say a single word for the entire night. Even as I poured you tea and talked, you sat silently and simply listened to what I said. It took many quiet meetings like that for you to begin to open up to me, but as you began to, I felt some of the happiest moments I've ever felt. I didn't become your friend because I pitied you, Hanako. I became your friend because I knew that you were hiding not just from me, but from everyone. Your ambitions, personality, interests, tastes, I didn't know any of them, and neither did anybody else. As you showed yourself to me though, I began to realize that person that you were, and you became sure that our meeting was a very special moment. But Lily cuts her words short as she brings her hand to Hanako's head and brushes her fringe to the side, gently pressing her lips to Hanako's forehead. As she pulls her head back, leaving Hanako all but speechless and her eyes moist, Lily beams a wide smile. I believe you are a very beautiful person, Hanako, and I am certain that you will become a strong and confident woman. You are a very dear friend, and someone whom I love very much. Just like Hisao, I will never forget you as long as I live. I may be leaving, but you have your own life to lead, just as I do. You have your own friends and hobbies, and your own hopes after graduation. I want you to devote yourself to them, even after I'm not around anymore. That is why I think you will be okay, because you are your own self, with your own life. You yourself proved that to me. Hanako lowers her head in embarrassment, but nods as she does so. I understand. I know I have to say goodbye. I know you have to go your own way. But thank you, Lily, for everything. Thank you, Hanako. Will you be okay? There are a few seconds of silence before the answer comes. I will. Lily smiles, undoubtedly at least partly in relief. That makes me very happy then. Goodbye. Goodbye, Lily. And farewell to you as well, Hisao. Goodbye. I'll miss you. She pauses for a moment before walking up to me, her right hand outstretched in front of her, takes a hold of my shoulder. Her left hand slowly and daintily reaches towards my face, taking my cheek in her palm. For a while she simply folds her face, her fingers just silently moving to take in its contours. Usually her hand would be warm when doing such a thing, but the night's air has given her skin a cool edge. I'm not sure how long we stay like this. Her clouded eyes pointed just below my own as she wears a wistful, almost distant smile. Eventually though, I take her cold hand in mine. It's difficult to do so, but with a slight sigh I gently remove her hand from my cheek. I hope you have a long and happy life, Lily, no matter where you might go. Thank you, I'll make sure to. She takes a long, trembling breath before turning slightly towards Akira's direction. Akira. Okay. With a nod, she takes Lily's... These onions, man. Someone's brought some onions in my room again, and I do not know where they are. Parked outside the gates, they both walk slowly and deliberately as if their movements had been rehearsed in advance. It's strange to feel like this now, watching somebody leave Yamaku. The feeling of unease I have now reminds me of the first time I walked through those black wrought iron gates. They'd always looked far too pompous for what they were. As they leave, all of us know full well that our lives are irreversibly changing. I'd always told myself that I just have to take life as it comes. But everything's changing so fast, so suddenly. In the end, Lily's an irreplaceable part of the lives of both Hanako and I. I have to admit, this path is making me far more emotional than Hanako's. I hate to see people leave. This is horrible. The noise of Akira opening the passenger door for Lily brings me out of my thoughts, her hand waving back as Lily gets in. See you guys, take care of yourselves. Goodbye Hanako, goodbye Hisao. Hanako's hand quickly shoots up, her face brightened by her enthusiastic farewell. Goodbye Lily, goodbye. See you Akira, and goodbye Lily. The door shuts as we all put on our best happy farewell faces, Akira getting in the car herself and starting it up in short measure. Lily's hand can just be seen waving through the tinted windows, both of our hands waving high as well. Sorry. Told ya this was making me choked up. Sorry. Just as every other time I've done such things, I can't quite work out precisely why I or Hanako waved to her, given that she'd never see us doing so, but it doesn't matter. Even after that black shiny car goes down the hill and disappears into the dark night, we carry on waving and seeing Akira and Lily off. And then they're gone. Oh man. Well, this sucks. A strange stillness takes over as our hands return to our sides. I don't quite know what I should do or how I should feel in the end. We just stand there silently staring down at where the car disappeared from sight. Goodbye, Lily. All I can do in response to her quiet, mournful goodbye is to place a hand on her shoulder. She looks at me for a few moments before looking back down the hill, secure in the knowledge that I'm still around for her. What we'll do from now doesn't seem all that uncertain. We all have our own ambitions now, just as Lily said. But even so, it feels like there's a certain missing part in both of our lives now. Something that can never be replaced. Myself again. Oh man. That was quite emotional. I'm sure I'm not the only one that cried at that part. I could not be the only one that cried. I'm sorry, that was not crying. That was manly tears. Manly tears were shed. Alright. Snap into it. Snap of my mobile phone's closing contrasts with the ambient chatter and noise audible even in the hallway outside the library. It's the first day of summer holidays, a time that had perpetually seemed so far away, and yet it's now not only here but also made painfully obvious by the students or lack thereof left in the school, and the fact that you have no one to talk to anymore. This is horrible. This sucks for Hisao. I feel so sorry for Hisao. He has no one left now. No one. Hanako is talking with her newspaper buddies, I'm sure, and Lily's left me. I don't really want to talk to Kenji, although he's probably already gone. Oh, that's right, I'm sure he had plans to go back to his parents or something, or his dad's or something. Most students have returned home to spend the holidays with relatives by now. The few that are left are mostly chatting between themselves, usually about what they intend to do in the coming weeks. It makes me feel like the odd one out, for taking advantage of the school library being open for the first several days of the holidays. Ostensibly, it's for the students to drop off any books they've borrowed and have yet to return, and for those who'll have their parents pick them up, to help pass the time until they get whisked away. Thanks to the recent lengthy phone call from my parents, which I had so rudely woken me from my sleeping on a beanbag at the back of the library, I'm now in the latter category. Sliding my phone back into my pocket, this time remembering to set it to silent, I would go back into the quiet and wholly placid room. It's a nostalgic sigh, just as when Lilly first led me to the library. The orange tint of sunset bathes the room in its light while Hanako sits on a beanbag silently reading and Yuko passes just barely visible behind the counter. Hanako especially has been noticeably more quiet than usual since yesterday's happenings, but I can't really blame her. It just wasn't me that depended on that person after all. I quietly walked back to the beanbag near her where I had sat before, but doubly careful not to make any unnecessary noise. Oh, please don't lag, computer, this is the last thing I need, seriously. The soft puff it gives as the bag takes my weight makes Hanako's eyes flick towards me, but only for a second. I get the feeling that Hanako's been quiet only partly out of sadness following Lily's departure. Rather, she's seemed more thoughtful and measured than I'd expected, perhaps due to her desire of working out how to deal with Lily's leaving, rather than just being depressed over it. It makes me a little proud of her. Hey Hanako. Yeah? Still going ahead with your idea of travelling? She gives a determined nod. I'll be starting in a day or two. Naomi's decided to come with me too. Wow, quick start. Where are you two headed to first? I think we're going to start by going north, then loop down and go southward. So Hokkaido's going to be first? She gives another nod, more tentative than the last. The significance of that place is not lost on either of us. I'm just going to soldier through this lag that my computer is having right now. I really don't want to stop right here. I'm just going to keep on going. Do you know how you're going to handle the travelling expenses and accommodations? Yeah, I've worked everything out. I think it should be okay. Naomi says she has her side worked out too. You know that if you need anything you can just call, right? I gave you my number before, any time of the day. Right, okay, third time lucky. First time the whole 2-hour video was corrupt so I couldn't use that. Second time the second half of the entire video was corrupt, so that's an hour gone. So in total I've lost 3 hours of video that could have potentially been far better than what I'm doing now. But anyway, third time lucky. Luck of the Irish maybe, even though I'm not Irish, so let's go with it. Yeah, I've worked everything out. I think it should be okay. Naomi says she has her side worked out too. You know that if you need anything you can just call, right? I gave you my number before. Any time of the day is fine. She gives a smile, which in itself feels like a small personal victory. I know. Thanks, Hisao. Maybe Lilly was right. Although I may offer Hanako any help I possibly can give, I feel as if I know she doesn't need it. She really has grown. You and Lilly are kind of like mother and father to Hanako. She's like your child. It's strange, but it's cool. Hanako's plans for her holidays are in sharp contrast to my simple following of my parents' suggestion to stay with them. Holidays had always made me feel less excited than most, though, so maybe this is just a return to the status quo. Before my heart attack, I'd always lived so aimlessly that holidays weren't all that much different from my everyday life anyway. After school, I'd wander around a bit in the city, often hanging out with some friends before making my way home to eat dinner with usually one of my parents, but rarely both. This is kind of sad, the fact that I'm reading this the third time through. Kind of annoys me. Their work schedules didn't leave much time for them to be home, and going there straight from school would have just meant I'd end up feeling bored. I was an urbanite through and through. Since coming to Yamaku though, it feels like I've fundamentally changed as a person. The phone call with my parents erased any traces of doubt I might have held on that, in any case. While before I had exercised a fairly normal level of independence for a teenager, that being not a whole lot, my parents were more than pleased to hear of my newfound ability in taking care of myself. Laundry, cooking for myself, cleaning, all in addition to other general chores that come from living without parents around. Just little menial things I've had to pick up, but with relative ease. When I think about it, I've always depended on them, even if they haven't been at home all the time. To say I never depended on anyone after moving to the Yamaku dormitories would be far from the truth. Excuse me. The two of us look up at the awkwardly fidgeting figure in front of us. Some things never change. It's getting close to closing time, so, oh right, I'd forgotten that the library closes earlier during the holidays. Hanako and I both get up and dust ourselves off, placing our books back on the shelf behind us. The fact that our tastes in reading material have a fair amount of overlap is useful at times. With a bow to Yuko to apologise for taking so much time, Hanako takes her leave of us. See you tomorrow, Hisao. Bye. And with that, she walks out of the large wooden aging doors that herald the entrance to the library. She's a quiet person, isn't she? I suppose I should be surprised at a staff member sharing personal opinions like this, but after knowing Yuko for a while, it's largely expected. Our relationship is more personal rather than one with her acting as an authority figure. Yeah, I think that's just how she is. She's got a lot more confidence in herself these days though. I don't know her as well as you do, but I think I agree. It's nice to see her talking to people here. She never used to do that before. Hey Yuko, you know about Lily's leaving, right? She told me herself a few days ago. It must be hard leaving everyone behind like she is. She quickly looks back to me after she says this, probably remembering that I went to her for advice on the relationship between Lilly and I before. Are you going to be okay? That's a difficult question. It's something I'd rather not think about for now though, given more pressing issues. Something seems kind of off about this whole deal, don't you think? Yuko appears to think for a while, absent-mindedly scrunching her face up in a variety of creative ways as she does so. I don't think I really know her well enough to make that kind of judgment. I'm sorry I can't be more help. Nah, that's fine, I'm just sort of thinking out loud. I give a deep sigh and scratch my head in frustration. There's just so much stuff happening at once that I have no control over. It feels like I'm being swamped. I think everyone goes through times like that. What's important is to concentrate on what you can do rather than what you can't do. At least, that's how I see it. I've always liked Yuko's logic. She's always seemed to be pretty knowledgeable on this sort of thing. Even though she doesn't like to admit the fact that she isn't any good at it, she is actually pretty good. If I didn't think like that, I don't think I'd be able to manage my life as it is. She says it with a smile and a light tone, but her words are far from any kind of joke. Being pulled between two jobs as she is, just to hopefully make enough money to not only to live, but also for university, must be exhausting. Perhaps that's why, coming from her, this feels like it has more meaning than if it had come from most others. I guess you've got a point there. Thank you for your advice once again, Yuko. No problem, that'll be $12.50. She bows deeply and smiles again, before making her way back to the counter where she spends so much of her time. The tiny wings of the cardboard crane in my fingers are only just visible in the dim light of my room. Just a little of the moonlight being able to peek through the curtains and around their edges. The remaining piece of Lily that we still hold dear to us. I lie still in my dark bed for a long time, idly looking up at the little origami bird. It feels like a lot's happened since Lily folded this, but at the same time it feels like very little has changed. Compared to everyone else, I'm back to square one. I might have a newfound idea of where I want to go in life, but that's hardly something that affects me now. Hanako changed, I know that much. If anything, she just makes me feel like I've got no excuse to be like this, considering her previous situation. Lily though. I turn the bird in my fingers another way, looking at it from yet another angle. When I first met her, she seemed aloof and perhaps somewhat distant. Her actions were always careful, measured and precise, and her carefully maintained composure always gave the appearance of unerring confidence and serenity. In time she became less formal, just a bit, but enough. It felt good to see her lowering her inhibitions around me, and opening up, even just a little, of her own accord. It felt as if I was seeing her real self slowly become more vibrant and visible. Now though, I'm beginning to have doubts. Perhaps they're to be expected after what is effectively the two of us breaking up. They don't feel new or strange though, but rather like an old book being found and dusted off. I soon realised after meeting Lilly that she saw me as she did Hanako, as someone who needed help and care. At first, I simply thought that we'd be fine as friends, helping each other through our limited time together in school. But then I began to treasure our moments together more and more. From our quiet walks to our talking over lunch, the good sides of her personality became even more obvious and ever more likeable. The absence caused by Lily's trip to Scotland to visit her long-distance family and sick aunt only made me realise how much I liked just being around her, and I had thought that she felt a similar way. For her though, maybe that wasn't everything to our relationship. Even after she returned to Japan, that just meant she lost her family once again after meeting them for such a brief time. She lived so much of her life without her family around, not to mention with a carer working long hours, that she had little choice but to be like that. I had thought her sense of independence to be a good and admirable trait. It was in stark difference to my reliance on my parents before my heart attack, as reluctant as I may have been to admit it. However, it also meant that she never let people get too close to her. She lost her family likely due to her blindness, went to a different school from anybody she knew because of it, and worked all the harder to make sure she didn't end up a burden on her sister and those around her. And now Akira is going to Inverness, just like the family she thought she'd lost. She never told me of her plans, as conflicted as she was about them. Lilly didn't want to be a burden on anyone, including me. I'm an idiot. I never questioned it. I never tried to be there or asked where she needed me to. I just set my life up and expected it to stay that way forever, with the two of us having a nice long relationship where we pushed forwards towards our future together. A small pit of frustration and anger at myself wells up in my chest. I just let everything happen, never even trying to help Lilly. Just her being there was enough. I thought I could keep going on if that was true. But that could never have been enough. It was like a childlike dependence on somebody, without any attempt to understand or help their situation. Thanks to that, I lost Lilly. I lost the one person I loved most because I wasn't there for her when she needed me. With an increasingly angry feeling washing over me, I turn over and set the crane back on the desk next to my clock, the place where it has lived since the day when she folded it for me. Since that day when she herself said that my burdens needn't be my own. The obnoxious bright red numerals of my alarm clock shine through the darkness of the room onto my eyes. 10 o'clock evening. Curfew will be soon. I wonder... Akira mentioned they'd be leaving this evening. I have no idea exactly when their flight is, but that means there's a chance, however small, that they might not have already left. Adrenaline starts to move through my body as I sit up on my bed, my eyes suddenly wide with possibility. There's no guarantee they haven't left, indeed it's likely that they already have, but there's also a chance they haven't, however small it may be. Just this once, just as I should have before. That's gonna hurt your eyes. You've been sitting in the dark for quite some time and you turn the light on. Idiot! I stand up and rush over to my cabinet, throwing out some old clothes as fast as I can and sliding them on in quick succession. Each second that goes by is a second that I can't regain, a second that may mean the difference between catching them and losing them forever. Even if I fail, I have to try. I can't let her leave everything behind without even trying to stop her, without just this once being there for her. With the last of my clothes slipped on, I hastily grabbed the phone off the desk. Luckily the number for a local taxi company is still in my call history. A gruff, unenthusiastic voice announces the name of the company while I pace around the room. Slow taxis, how may I help you? It takes some effort to slow down my voice and keep it clear over the phone. 123 Fake Street, please. That'll cost 98.60. Actually no, that'll cost 20,000 yen. The chilly night air sweeps against me as I open the dormitory room, but nevertheless I keep up my brisk speed as I half jog, half run out to the school gates. It may not be curfew just yet, but it's precariously close. If there were a guard around, they'd no doubt have some questions for me, but it looks like I've managed to come out just before they arrive, or they're around a corner. My pace picks up as I make my way through the school gardens, their nighttime allure all but lost when I begin to run to the school gate. The lamps of the courtyard, dim as they are, provide just enough illumination to light the way and prevent me from tripping over. The buildings themselves take on a rustic, almost antique looking edge when I glance at them. Looking back, it seems strange that they once appeared so dark and looming to me. Now they just look to be somewhat anachronistic school buildings, same as any other bar their age. Leaving the gates behind me, I pull up to a stop just before the taxi, parked just as Akira's car had been. Its gaudy and brightly lit sign looks out of place in the quiet country backdrop. I impatiently squeeze myself through the door, giving the driver the address for where the two should hopefully be staying. Florin! By the time the taxi pulls up after its trip at maddeningly casual speed, it's well and truly deep into the night. The house is truly enormous, its sheer size much larger than I had expected. It's ominously still. Fearing the worst, I ask the driver to stay just in case my efforts are for naught. The single press on the fancy intercom system outside the gate produces a short electronic melody. In the otherwise silent road, it's not long before a somewhat deep gruff voice can be heard from it.
This is the Hakamichi residence. Please state your name and why you're bothering us this late.
I don't know why the gruff, deep, gravelly voice has an English accent to it, but hey, you never know. I press on despite inwardly wincing at the reasonable annoyance audible in his voice. It's Hisao Nakai. I was hoping to meet Lilly or Akira if they're still here. Surprisingly, I managed to summon quite some energy to my voice, enough to make the other side of the intercom silent. Hey! A few seconds pass just before I press the button again and ask what's going on. A light turns on outside the front door. I strain my eyes to try and make out who is coming through, but as... That's not who was coming through, I just really had to burp, I'm sorry. Not sorry. Okay, maybe I'm sorry. Seriously, I'm not sorry. But as he comes past the large parked car with fishing rods sticking out the back, his identity becomes clear. His face is typically placid and emotionless as he saunters up to the gate. He's still childlike in his mannerisms despite his demeanour. With the press of a few buttons from behind the fence, the gate slowly opens. Oh, okay, maybe I may have done the wrong voice for this one.
Hisao, what are you doing?
No. Hisao, what are you doing here? I think this is the most emotion I've ever heard from his voice. Not that it would be hard to reach that mark. Akira told me that she and Lilly would be staying here before they left for their flight. I need to talk to Lilly, just one last time. Are they still here? Oh, that's not a good sign. The look on his face says everything. I failed. I was too late. The one time when I actually needed to act quickly and... Actually, it's possible. What is it? He's a bit taken aback by my fervour, but I can't help it at this point. They left not long ago, only a few minutes before you arrived in fact. If you go straight to the airport, you might be able to... Hisao? I dart back towards the waiting taxi, grabbing what little money is left in my pocket as I go. Thanks, Ariaki. With that, I take a seat and in short order bark out my destination. We be off to the airport. My chest beats wildly as I tear down the street, my body twisting this way and that to slip between the pedestrians walking back and forth beside me. With the road solidly blocked by taxis and other cars dropping off passengers and picking up others in the time they have to wait, we ended up having to stop almost a block away. But that's in the past now. What matters is reaching Lilly. One foot hits the ground, the other quickly following without the slightest thought, as if my legs have taken on a life of their own and all my mind can do is concentrate on the view ahead of me. Just one glimpse of that long hair of his. That long yellow hair was the same colour of the wheat that stretched as far as the eye could see. In the end, I depended on Lilly just like Hanako did. Even after we started going out, it still doesn't feel like she really ever let herself depend on me. Except for one moment. That one moment where we held each other tightly on that bright yellow field. Ah, yes, I remember that. Good times were had. At that time, she must have feared losing me, just as she did everyone else. That's why, just this once, the night air wraps around me, draining every last remnant of warmth out of my body, to the extent that it feels more like midwinter than a summer night. My fingers, my hands, my feet, they all feel increasingly cold. The sound of the passing crowds is reduced to no more than a background hum, while the sound of my shoes hitting the pavement echoes loudly, every step surging towards the person I have to catch. Forced by my chest tightening, oh god. In response to the cold of the night, I rest an arm over it to try and settle it down. Oh Jesus. When the airport comes into view, though, I realise this feeling is one I've felt before. Not now. Of all times for this, please, not now. I take a gulp and soldier on regardless, pushing my body as far as it will go. Sweat pours off me as I hurtle forward, my shoulder hitting someone's side and my mind suddenly flooding with emotions and memories. I continue on without an apology. I have to keep moving now. If I stop, I'm not sure I could begin again. And even if I could, it would be all for naught if I'm not in time. I hit another person, then another, offering little resistance to get bounced about. My feet feel numb, my arms are losing all feeling, my chest forces me to hunch over awkwardly, tightening even more. Oh no, do not do this. Do not do that. That afternoon in the snow, that time when my life irreversibly changed, images of Awanako and that damned letter flash over and over in my mind. The first love I'd lost thanks to my condition. I can't let that happen again. I don't care what happens to me anymore, I just need to see her one last time. There! A slither of yellow and white comes into view some distance down the road, her figure silhouetted by the lights emanating from the airport entrance. It could look hilarious. I wasn't staring at Akira's ass, I was looking at... Lilly! Lilly! Lilly, stop please! Lilly! Come on Lilly, I know your hearing's far beyond naught. Ah! My view suddenly spins out of control and ends up on the ground. My body haphazardly sprawled after hitting someone and stumbling over. Before I can assess the damage, an unbelievable pain ignites in my body. All my thoughts are blanked as I curl up and frantically clutch at my chest. Hey, are you okay? That was a really bad fall. It's pain. I can't... Ah! Ah! Any sharp knock could do me in. Any overexertion, I thought I could overcome my limits this once. Something's wrong with him. What's the matter? Oh no. The voices of those gathering around me are gradually replaced by a loud ringing. Oh no. Oh, Hisao, buddy. In my ears. By now I'm unable to move my head. My eyes turn upwards to see the mute moving of their lips. Oh, this is the end. This is the end. My only friend, the end. If anyone can tell me what that song is, you get 10 internet points. And a cookie. Even as I clutch my chest, I realise I can't feel my fingers anymore, nor my feet. It feels like my entire body is shutting down, starting from my extremities. With one last effort, I turn my head down the road towards the airport entrance. It's casting its light over me. Lilly is there, behind the crowd. Her head is tilted, but only just slightly. I can feel my vision dimming as I try to yell out, but nothing emerges from my mouth, despite my best efforts. Slowly but surely, my vision begins to black out the scene before me. So, this is how it ends. I failed. I was so close, so very close, but at that very last moment, my condition seized my chance at a new life and dragged me back. Now I'm going to die, sprawled out just meters from an airport, with a crowd of babbling people surrounding me, and with Lilly leaving for Scotland just a little distance ahead. Lilly... That last word extinguishes the last of my energy. The word falls into a deep, inescapable blackness as every muscle in my body shuts down. I'm sorry, Lilly. I was too late. I think you've still got a bit of fight in you, Hisao. See, I knew it. This is not heaven. There's no way this is heaven. Is this...
Welcome To heaven, Hisao. I am God.
Just kidding, it's actually a hospital room. What's going on? As I slowly open my eyes, a bright white light assaults my retinas. For minutes I just lay where I am, mindlessly staring ahead while my scattered thoughts coalesce in my slowly walking mind. Slowly but surely, I told you! Slowly but surely the white begins to come into focus as the bare expanse begins to be drawn across my field of vision. It's only when the light fixture comes into view that my mind clicks that this is the ceiling above me. Slowly levering myself up, I silently absorb through all my senses the details of the room I'm in. The smell and taste of strong bleach hang in the air, lending the impression of a place just slightly too clean to be natural. Inoffensive pale peach coloured walls, all perfectly painted without a crack, stain or imperfection. A single framed painting hangs on the wall perfectly straightened. Like the walls, it's as boring and inoffensive as can be. My attention's grabbed by the translucent curtain waving across my vision, my eyes following it to the open window it covers. When I move my right arm to try and lift myself up, I look through it. I feel the catheter dig in uncomfortably. It's only now too that I notice the cannula... Cannula? Is it cannula or cannula? Cannula doesn't sound like a doctor medical word. I'm going to go with cannula. Tubes winding around my cheeks and into my nose. I've never actually had that, the cannula or cannula, whatever, tubes going up your nose, but that sounds pretty uncomfortable to me. After some fidgeting, I settle just for looking around the corner of the window. Beyond the thick leaves of several large trees, I can see the greenery below backing out onto a field, a customary island of green on the outskirts of the city. Judging by the sun outside, it's noon, of which day though I'm not sure. So, I'm in a hospital once again. I let out a long, tired breath as I try to collect my scattered thoughts, my mind seemingly cast in a dozen directions all at once with as many emotions running through me. After slowly lying back down, I decide to start at the beginning, why I'm here. I cast my mind back, but I can't work out a smooth recollection of what happened. The events of last night, or whichever night it was, come back more as a series of snapshots than any cohesive memory. Lying on my bed looking at the origami bird. Talking to Hariaki outside the Hakemichi residence. Running down the street, passing pedestrians and bumping into more and more of them. Falling. Looking up at the searingly bright airport entrance, seeing Lily's back as I lay on the ground. The silence of the private room suddenly feels overwhelming. So that's it. I had my chance to correct my mistake and I blew it. Whether I was at fault for neglecting my medication and disregarding to pace myself, or my body was for giving out so soon, it doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter now. All that matters is that, once again, I'm alone. The pastel blue pillow yields with little resistance as I let myself fall back onto the bed, its starchy case along with the starchy sheets providing little comfort. Oh, I hate that. Hospital pillows and sheets are horrible. I thought, aren't you supposed to make patients comfortable? I mean, if they've just had surgery and all that sort of stuff, they should be comfortable, not, in cardboard fucking sheets. It's the same when you go on, a school camp. They have these really, cardboardy pillowcases and sheets and whatnot, and the mattresses are, 10 mils thick. It's disgusting. Compared to the darkness of last night's events, the bright light of the room around me is striking. All it does though is emphasise how otherworldly places like this are. Arrhythmia. A strange word, a foreign alien one that you don't want to be in the same room with. God, this is deja vu. I remember saying this exact same line at the very start of my Katawa Shoujo series. A rare condition, it causes the heart to act erratically and occasionally beat way too fast. It can be fatal. It was a miracle that you were able to go on so long without anything happening, they said. And then it did. My condition had taken away everything. My old school was of no more importance anymore. My home was reduced to a faraway place. Both my friends and my first love simply stopped visiting after a length of time. I I became cynical and embittered, distant and subdued. In my defence, no person could avoid that after such a thing happening to them, but nonetheless I left the hospital as a very definitely changed person. Things changed. I made new friends in Hanako, Shizune and Misha. I found a new sense of home in my dormitory, a new interest in science and the world around me, and I found a direction to my life that I had never felt before. But I'd also discovered other things. The sense of isolation in Yamaku and its surrounds was not entirely unwelcome, the quiet giving a peace of mind I might not have found elsewhere, but it gave the area a feeling of being pushed out of the way, of being kept out of sight. People in the streets would sometimes glance awkwardly or quickly turn their heads as they realised they were staring. Even if my condition wasn't visible, my uniform was. Even if it weren't, I was still different. I took 17 pills a day, morning, midday and night. My scar, though hidden behind clothing, was still a permanent mark of my condition, and most of all, there was a very real possibility of death. A bad fall, an absent-minded hard hit on the back, a simple sprint taken too far, anything could have set my heart off, and several times I teetered on the edge of the abyss, even with all the care I took of myself. But that was fine. I could have lived with all that. Because there was one final thing I found, or rather refound, after entering Yamaku, which was once again snatched away before my eyes. It's only now that I realise just how delicate my newfound sense of happiness was. Everything depended on her, the linchpin of my life since I first entered Yamaku as a sullen, confused and aimless transfer student. Lilly was the one person I could depend upon above all others, and who reciprocated that love that I felt for her, but I failed her, and only realised it all too late. I thought that I could just set my life up and continue that way forever, but the real world doesn't work like that. I finally realised the meaning of those words, only to be struck down as I confronted my failure to do so in time. The surroundings I'm in now are all too familiar. It's as if Yamaku was but a dream, and I'm still recovering from my first major heart attack. So you've been in a coma this whole time, and you've just been dreaming. Maybe that's why I feel so tired. It feels almost as if I've lived the entire last few months of my life in the space of minutes. The weight of my eyelids closes my eyes, my physical and mental exhaustion letting me off for no resistance. Unintelligible mumbling from the head of the bed stirs me out of my sleep. With my eyes still closed, I can focus and make out someone, presumably a nurse, bidding farewell to a doctor. As I open my eyes, I notice the door closing in my peripheral vision. The doctor stands reading some notes off a clipboard, held in his hand, carefully looking over the pages. After consulting his obviously very important documents, he looks up and notices my gaze. It's now that I notice something slightly odd about his expression and general disposition, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Ah, I see you're awake, Mr. Nakai. His quick glance to my bed end to verify my name shows that his documents obviously didn't have it written on them. It's good that he remembered your name then, if he glanced at it after he said it. I must admit that this is a bit unfortunate. Your parents visited just earlier while you were asleep. I could notify them that you're awake now if you'd like. Thanks, that would be good. I give a somewhat dazed reply, most likely the one that he'd expect, before really thinking about what I'm saying. Not a problem. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, I'll be happy to answer them. That is, unless you'd prefer to rest. The anesthetic's still going to be affecting you a bit, I'm afraid. The anesthetic, of course. That'd be why I felt so strange the first time I woke up. I slowly shake my head, not wanting to dislodge any pipes or cause myself any more discomfort than necessary. The doctor politely puts down his clipboard in response. I guess my main question is, what exactly happened? To put it simply, you've unfortunately had another heart attack. While not as severe as your first, you were very lucky it occurred so close to a hospital. After being stabilised, you were taken to the operating room. What followed was keyhole surgery in order to insert a temporary pacemaker. All in all, the incident happened 2 days ago, with emergency treatment being carried out very soon afterward. Since then, we've kept you under close observation while you were asleep. Will I be alright? Are there any lasting problems? Compared to the procedure carried out for your first heart attack, this was relatively minor. While you will have to undergo surgery once more in a few days, time to remove the pacemaker, assuming there are no complications, there should be no lasting implications. He continues talking, the subject shifting to a repetition of facts about arrhythmia and my medications that I already know for the most part. I start to nod in faint interest when my mind drifts. I begin to think about how perfectly hung the inoffensive painting hanging on the wall behind his shoulder is, and how neat and sterile the surroundings are, even including the doctor himself. If my mumblings bore you, you are quite welcome to say no, Mr. Nakai. Mr. Nakai. Lord knows I lose track of myself sometimes. He gives a short chuckle. It is a self-deprecating joke, as I grimace awkwardly, having been rather badly caught out. The doctor's chuckle sounds different from that of the nurse at Yamaku though. Come to think of it, as I ponder why, I realise the man in front of me just feels that little bit off. You've been thinking a lot of things have been off lately, Sal? His smile is neat and sterile. He delivers his joke perfectly with a customary inoffensive chuckle. It is like, rather than talking to the man whose name is neatly printed on the name tag pinned to his lab coat, I'm merely interacting with an actor reading off a pre-rehearsed script, every action having been choreographed beforehand. I suppose he has to be this way though, being a doctor. He has to keep his neat and sterile smile when chatting to the girl with cancer slowly spreading through her body, when reassuring the woman who will surely die from childbirth, and with every other terminally and critically ill patient. Yeah, it must really suck being a doctor when it comes to stuff like that. They have to be happy with the patient until it actually comes to breaking the bad news to them. That's really gonna suck. Although it is their profession, so I suppose they know what they're getting into when they go to med school. That little bit of distance, that little bit of aloofness. It makes me wonder if I've been too harsh, especially considering it's a disposition far from being adopted only by people in his profession. After all, the one I loved kept that same distance from others herself. Looking up to the doctor again, I realise I've been in thought with my head bowed for some time. I understand you must still be tired. You've been through a lot, and as I mentioned before, the anaesthetic would still be affecting you. If you don't mind, I'll let you get some rest and tell your parents you've woken up for you. I think that would be good, thank you. He gives a curt nod before picking up his clipboard and making his way to the large white door in the corner of the room, closing it behind him with a thud. In the end, I'm alone again. Lily's gone, Akira's gone, Hanako would be travelling, and even my parents have already left the hospital. 4 pale peach walls, 1 white ceiling, and a single open window to look out towards the world outside. It's hard to think of the future when the past is crowded around you, claustrophobic in its neat, sterile, starchy, bleach-smelling grip. Lost for what to do or focus on, I content myself with sleeping the time away as if this were all just another dream like Yamaku had been. White. A sterile, clean white for a sterile, clean room. My eyes open and I simply stare at the ceiling for some time. It's about as interesting as the television would be, mounted in its metal rack hanging off the ceiling ahead of the bed. Indeed, the television saw its entire use during the time my parents were here, left on quietly as they waited for me to wake. It was about as banal as it had been the first time I ended up in hospital. Earlier today, an attending nurse had offered to turn off the EKG speakers. I refused simply because the sound is so entirely normal to me now. It's almost comforting in a way. The metronome-like regularity gives at least some feeling that time is moving, even in a place such as this. After some time of listening to its beeping while I fully awaken, though, I realise there's another sound in the room. He's right. Oh, you know what that is? You know what I'm thinking, B1? Because I think I am B2. I think it's that, that chime box thing that we got Lily. Which means Lily's here! Yes! Lily still loves me after all. Concentrating all my efforts on listening, a task made rather easy by the lack of distractions, a tiny tinny melody can be heard. Light and quiet, the music sounds almost fragile, as if dwarfed by the EKG's pulses. Tilting my head just slightly to the side in an effort to see the source of the melody without dislodging any of the sensors and pipes stuck onto me, I notice a little wooden box sitting on the nightstand next to the bed. My mouth opens just slightly while I silently watch the tiny yellow metal drum slowly rotate inside, the little bumps on its surface gradually moving in and out of sight. This music box, it's the one I gave. The creaking of the door breaks me out of my reverie, my head and heart remaining still as my eyes turn to see who's come through. I bet it's Lilly. Yes! Long tan skirt, peach off the shoulder sweater, pale almost porcelain skin, blue clouded eyes and long yellow hair. I'd laugh if it was someone else that was just wearing like the exact same clothes as Lilly. All I can do is stare as Lilly slowly walks into the room, her fingers lightly running over the wall for orientation, and my mind comes to a shuddering halt. Lilly? She stops mid-stride, her entire body tensing. Hisao, was that you? Her voice is quiet and pensive, echoing her expression. I thought you were... Lilly takes one tentative step forward, then another as if she were holding herself back. Her control over her composure is for naught though, as she finally rushes over to where I lay, as the last of her resistance falls. Ah. I'm slightly taken aback when she grabs hold of me, hunching over as tears begin to fall from her cheeks. Since only minutes ago I thought she was on the other side of the world. After a moment of hesitation, I rest my right hand on her soft shoulder. Hisao! Hisao! Lilly's body trembles as her tears blot the dark blue sheets, her emotions flooding through her carefully maintained exterior. With her face now closer and made easier to see for her pale skin to be lit by the sunlight from the window, I notice her cheeks being redder than they should be. It's okay, Lilly, I'm okay, you don't need to... She rights herself quickly, her crying forcefully stifled, with both sadness and stubbornness remaining in her moistened eyes. Her prideful nature, always having been something to contend with, takes me off guard. Stop telling me not to worry about you, Hisao. Just this once, let me cry. I'm caught speechless. She waits for a response, but her composure breaks again, and after a handful of seconds. I swallow hard to try and settle my own emotions while she weeps onto my bed, a strange mixture of relief and depression welling up. Lilly's here. She's really here. If I couldn't feel her skin under my hand, I'd hardly believe my own eyes. My efforts weren't for nothing. My body's attempt to take away everything that was important to me once again has been foiled. But now, I don't feel as happy about it as I thought I would. Seeing her here crying like this over me, this is the one thing I wanted to avoid since coming to love her. No, even since leaving the hospital. I'm sorry, Lilly, it's my fault I'm here. I shouldn't have tried to push myself so far. I give a self-deprecating snort. After months of keeping myself together so nobody would worry over me, I went and did something like this. I guess I'm pretty dumb. With a couple of sniffs and a long breath, Lilly manages to pull herself together and calm down a little. Despite her red cheeks, moist eyes and the lines of her tears still visible, she delicately wears the weak smile she seemed so often to give. You needn't blame yourself. I heard later that it happened as you were running down the road after me, right? Still. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand, returning more to her old self as the rush of emotions wears off. Why did you run after me, Hisao? I move to respond, but notice her face tightening. Even after I'd said goodbye and I'd left Yamaku Academy. She takes a moment to steady herself, her emotions almost bubbling up once again. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. Sorry? For the times when I wasn't there when you needed me. Until now, I thought you'd just be there. I just thought you being there would be enough. I only needed you by my side to make any day feel better. Even if my body may be like this, I want to help you, Lilly, to be there when you need someone. But you always were there, Hisao. Why did you want to go to Scotland, Lilly? Why? I told you before, because Akira was going and because of my family's summons to their home. Why didn't you say that you wanted to go? I'm not stubborn often, but this one time I think I need to be. I want you to stay here, Lilly. I want you to stay where everyone knows, where everyone you know lives, and where all your dreams and ambitions were made. If you choose to say, I'll never leave your side, I won't let you lose another person. When I had my heart attack, I was snatched away from everyone and everywhere I knew. You showed me a new life after I came to Yamaku. I lost my past, but you showed me a future. It's true that I haven't always been there for you. I'm unreliable sometimes, I lied. And I thought I'd come to understand you when I hadn't even understood myself. Be that as it may, I want to give you a future as well. I want to be there for you, to share both your burdens and your happiness, just like I promised back in Hokkaido. I want you to trust me. I know I had problems coming to put my trust in you after losing so many people I'd known after my heart attack, but that's how I know that being unable to trust others can feel awful. That's why I can't watch you just throw away everything like this. I never want you to go through what I did. I would do anything to stop that. You can be quite the steadfast when you want to be, can't you? As I said, it isn't often. My weak smile drops though as the IV in my arm digs in a little. It's a harsh reminder of my tether to my condition. Lily's face tenses as I let out a small gasp of pain, immediately making me wish I'd stifled it better. All I can do is sigh in defeat. I tried not to let anyone worry over me for the entire time since I left the hospital, but I can't even stop the one person I love most from crying over me. Even if I might finally be able to put my feelings into words, I feel pretty useless with a body like this. Every time I tried to reach towards something, I was just snatched away, and even now, things only turned out for the better due to luck. I guess that's something else I should apologize for. All I can ever do is make you worry. Even now, there's very little chance I'll live anywhere near a full life. The feeling of Lily's warm soft hand moving over my left cheek makes me lift my head up, her smile gentle and warm as she touches me. I think that is something very natural for you to say. You were always so sincere and self-conscious. You were also reserved and mild-mannered, impatient to fault with Hanako, yet curious about everything and everyone. When I said I missed you while I was with my family, I wasn't lying or exaggerating. The thought of you was never far from my mind, and helped me through that time. That's why I was so confused about what to do when my family summoned me. Even after I thought I had made my decision, you tried your hardest to challenge me about it. I didn't confess to you out of pity or believing you were somehow different from what you are. I confessed because I never want to lose you, and want you to always be a part of my life, no matter what might change. You are a very beautiful person, Hisao. Your heart changes none of that, so please don't apologize for yourself anymore. For a long time, silence reigns in the room. I'm not really sure what this newly born feeling inside of me is, but it pales into insignificance as I wordlessly gaze at Lily's smiling face, warm and gentle as it has always been. It's only as her thumb crosses my cheek, wiping away a single drop of moisture, that I realize that this is all I've ever wanted. For what feels like the first time, I give an earnest, wide smile. As Lily feels it against her palm, she returns the gesture. More time passes before either of us say a word, neither of us needing speech to communicate our feelings to each other. I know I can't promise you that I'll always be around, or that we'll be together forever. With some difficulty, I slowly lift my hand, placing it on her pale shoulder. But I think I can at least take you to next year's Tanabata Festival to make up for making you miss this year's. Lily's expression is one of surprise, so I can't say I blame her. You remembered that? I've got a pretty good memory, sometimes. She raises her head a little and takes her hand from my cheek, giving a small amused giggle. I smile absent-mindedly at how earnest it is, almost girlish in its lightness. Still smiling warmly, she collects herself and stands upright with a hand resting on my chest. It feels like I'm seeing her for the first time, the sun from the window glowing behind her just as it did when I first walked into that room where she was drinking tea. Very well then, shall we make it a promise between the both of us to go next year's Tanabata together? Even if she can't see me doing so, I nod approvingly. I promise. I promise. Well, well, well. That That was Katawa Shoujo, Lilly's path. I'm stretching right now, which is why my voice sounds strange. But it's a good stretch. But yeah, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really loved it. Apart from the fact that this last, I think it's been about 3 hours, took me about 48 hours to complete. Because, yeah, like I said, first time I tried to do it, the entire file was corrupt. I think that was because it took too long. The file was too big, I mean, it was 102 gigabyte. It's fraps bloody recording in too high quality. But that's it. Thank you for watching, and please rate and subscribe and comment if you enjoyed. I will be doing Shizune's path next. Oh! Just wait one moment. Hold that truck. Don't you close out of the video just yet. We are not done. Akira, Lilly and I silently sit on the grassy embankment high above the local town, the breeze gently blowing through the cloudless sky. We may just be a few minutes walk from town on a hill just outside its limits, but the view is entirely unexpected. This kind of looks like where I lived, especially this part here. This part right here. This looks exactly where I live. Okay, maybe not, but the rest of it does. Lilly sits beside me, her eyes closed as the gentle breeze flows through her hair. This is a nice area. Yeah, I never knew a place like this was anywhere near Yamaku. And I had to be the one to find it, of course. Akira's grin is genuine, but her tone is slightly different from her usual carefree nature. It's good that you're out of the hospital though, Hisao. Nobody's more glad than I am. I can't stand hospitals. So you two going back to the school tomorrow? Yep. Akira chuckles in amusement before looking back out to the town below, the trees between the buildings swaying in the wind. Pity we couldn't go up north for the summer holidays or get to Tanabata. I wouldn't worry, there's always next time. You'll be graduating before next summer vacation, won't you? Yeah, there'll still be college after that, mind. Going to the same one? Well, we better be. Likely, we both have high enough scores to meet the entry requirements. You sound so sure. Don't worry, you're better than I in most subjects. I guess we'll work it out in due time. That's the way, just enjoy yourselves in Yamaku while you're there. Lilly gives a sad sigh at the distinction made between Akira and the two of us. Do you really need to go back to Scotland? Yeah, the folks are already out for my blood as it is. You weren't meant to stay this long? She gives her trademark wide grin. Setting my boyfriend up with a passport took some time. You're taking him with you? Wait, I thought you broke up with him. Must have got a new one. That was fast. Just for a while at first. He's a surprisingly worldly guy, so I think he'll do just fine. Akira gives an amused snort. If our father had his way, I'd have gone a long while ago. I couldn't just pass up an excuse to stay with my favourite little sister a little while longer though. She leans right and gives Lilly a tight, playful hug, cheering her up considerably. It's nice to be with you one last time though. For what it's worth, I'm in the same boat. Heh, thanks you too. I'll try and come back sometime, don't worry. It's a shame that the business keeps you so busy. The place won't run itself, I'm afraid, and I think it's going to be just the same over there. Considering that, I'd better get going. Have fun over there, Akira. Haha, will do. With a slight grunt, she lifts herself up with her hands and stands up, dusting herself off. I want to say off some more, off, as she does so. Well, I'd better be off. The plane won't wait for me after all. She has a certain unusual wistfulness in the tone of her voice, her eyes firmly planted on her sister. I'll be okay, Akira. Yeah, I know. Come now, it isn't that bad. You'll be able to see us again soon. It is strange to have Lilly reassuring a doubting Akira for once. She really has changed. Goodbye, Akira. Bye. For a second, the dark-clad figure looks down at the both of us, smiling widely, perhaps more widely than I've ever seen her do before. She lets out a long, silently wavering breath to steady herself before leaving, but eventually slips her hand in her pocket and turns on her heel. And with that she walks away, one hand held in the air as she goes. See you later, you two. Jazz tune with no beat, melody or direction to the very end. After a few moments of sitting silently, Lily and I pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off. Turning towards her with a broad smile, I hold out my hand. Shall we be off then? She takes my hand in hers with a gentle nod and a smile as beautiful and warm as ever. Indeed we shall, Hisao. Aww. As we set off towards the school, that wonderful smile engraves itself onto my memory, that wonderful smile that we both share. Our paths may be scattered and at times overshadowed by sadness, but they always... but they're always an irrevocable part of our lives and personalities. Even if I could change a single thing, I wouldn't, because my past was what led me here. That's why, even with all that's happened to us before, and all that may well befall us together, we'll keep walking forwards. Forwards towards the future. Our future. I was gonna say, there had to be a better ending than that, and there was. That was awesome. Anyway guys, that pretty much wraps it up. Well, that does wrap it up for Lily's Path. Like I said, I hope you enjoy. Please rate and comment and subscribe and all that good stuff if you enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll be doing Shizune's Path next. So, I will see you guys next time.